This study series on divine health and healing is based on the body systems that God has put into place. My desire and passion that every believer should have divine health and healing, and every church should know to handle how their people get sick long term, comes from a personal episode when I was very sick. In 1986, wounds began to appear over my feet, over my knees, over both legs. And they kept getting worse from the month of April till July 31st. By July 31st, I found this was in 1986, July 31st, I found that many of these wounds are coalescing, coming together, and it looked like a horrible eczematous eruption. But my medical knowledge told me that it is not just plain eczema. The exudate, what came out is called the exudate, was very thick, and by the time I got to bed on 31st of July, I knew for some length of time I will not be able to get about. By this time I also found that my sleep was disturbed, my bowel motions were not normal, and my appetite was affected, and I got to bed wondering how the Lord will help me. I must also confess that I had become very arrogant, and I was getting very proud, conceited about the things I was doing. I was a medical doctor, I was a medical academic, and I had topped my batch on graduation from Colombo Medical Faculty. I had gold medals in medicine, clinical medicine, and MBBS, pathology, pharmacology, but I had also taken up God's work in earnest. So I could not understand why I should fall sick like this. However, the battle was difficult, the wounds had a burning sensation, and from the 1st of August till the 17th of August, I was cleaning up the wounds, I was trusting the Lord for healing. And it took about an hour to clean up the wounds. I cleaned it up with warm water, and the wounds will begin again. On the 17th of August, two servants of God visited me. One was Brother D.J.S. Dinakaran from India. He sat by my bedside and he prayed over me, he cried with me, he comforted me. On the 17th of August 1986, in the evening, afternoon at about 2 o'clock, a friend of mine, Kenny Peters, who now lives in Melbourne, brought to me a person I have never met. He was of Chinese origin. He was living in Perth, Australia at that time. His name, I was told, was Charles Tang. He was an accountant, but also into the Lord's ministry. He sat by my bedside, and I was stretched out on bed, covered in my wounds. I did not want anyone to see the wounds. I was embarrassed. How can a person serving God get ill like this, was my constant concern. And he watched me, spoke to me a little, and he suddenly got up and said, "You, mister, you have been serving God with great zeal, but you have thought that you are God," and he rebuked me severely. Right then, something happened inside my heart. Rather than getting angry or offended, I knew he was telling the truth. Inner veil went off. Then he looked at me again and said, "Because for your wife's sake, I will pray for you." And he asked me to remove the coverlets that were covering my wounds, and he pointed his finger at the very angry looking, oozing wounds, completely covering the dorsum of my foot, right up to the ankle and a little above the ankle, and over my kneecaps, and the wounds were appearing already over my finger clefts and behind my ear, over my eyebrow as well, and over my buttocks as well. And going to the toilet was difficult. I used to hop with my elbows resting on my wife's shoulder, and there would be a purple colored fluid oozing out of different blisters on the top of my foot. That was my state when this gentleman, Charles Tang, prayed for me. He rebuked the wounds 4 times. In his Chinese accent, he said, "I rebuke you 4 times." And he left. I did not know what to expect. Wounds had been on for nearly 4 months, and I was bedridden for 17 days. But within the hour, I found that the ooze was drying up, and on the third day, whole thing healed up, and the thick scab came out like a coconut shell out of my knees, and my feet also healed up, and my areas that the wounds were healed looked very pink like baby skin, and I remembered Naaman and his healing. To this day, I don't know medically what it was. At that time, we were living in a village, and people would normally call this affliction. And Acts 10 verse 38 says, God anointed Jesus of Nazareth, who went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed of the devil. I am not saying every sickness is of the devil. All I am saying is when you are down with a sickness that has overrun many systems in your body. There are 12 systems in our body that God has created for good health. You get the sleep-wake system. You get the hormone, adrenaline, cortisol system. You get the thrill-pebble system. You get the blood pressure system. You get the gastric acid system. And you get many other systems like that. During this study, we will discover how much the Lord is willing to do for us and what the anointing can do. So please go through the study and receive the blessing God has for you. God bless you. You can contact us on the numbers that will appear on the screen, and you can contact us at Brookside website. God bless you and be with you.